1926s. Wheat penny is exceptionally hard to find in high grades, making it one of the key semi-keys of the entire Lincoln series. Not all 1926 pennies are worth more than a cent, but a perfectly preserved, high-grade example from the San Francisco Mint, especially with original red luster, is so rare that it can fetch hundreds of thousands to over $1 million at auction. The 1926s penny was minted in fewer numbers, and most entered circulation immediately. Harsh use and poor storage meant that almost none were saved in pristine condition. Fewer than 10 examples exist in MS65 red gem mint state. Only a handful are known in MS66 red, the highest grade ever assigned. Collectors pay astronomical prices for these coins, often battling in elite auctions for a chance to own one. Lincoln cents are copper, and copper oxidizes over time. Most common, oxidized copper color. Some original mint color remains. A 1926 penny in full red is incredibly rare. One MS66 red 1926s penny was privately sold for over $150,000, and numismatists believe the right beer would pay over $1 million for a flawless example. Collectors aiming for a complete set of Lincoln wheat cents must have the 1926. Thus, its scarcity in high grades places it among the top 10 key dates, the most difficult coins to complete in red mint state. Its historical placement between World War I and the Great Depression adds to its mystique, while the 1926 wheat penny is valuable in pristine condition. Even more excitement surrounds rares such as double die obverse, though extremely rare for this date. Die cracks and cuds were punch mint marks RPM. Each of these can enhance the value, especially when authenticated by PCGS or NGC. Over the decades, the most pristine 1926s cents have made headlines. Private collectors have reportedly offered $750,000 or more for MS66 candidates. Experts believe if a perfect MS67 or D example were found and certified, it could break $1 million. Even more common grades like BF Very Fine or XF Extra Fine command $30 to $100, and circulated examples can range from $500 to $10,000, depending on the color and grade. With values this high, authentication is critical. Top-tier coins should be graded and encapsulated by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC Numismatic Guarantee Company, verified for mint origin, strike quality, and color, protected from damage to preserve market value. The 1927 Liberty wheat penny, its origin, rarity, errors, and why it remains one of the most fascinating pieces for collectors. Today. The year was 1927. America was booming. Industry was thriving. The stock market soared. Ford was churning out Model Ts, and jazz filled the streets. It was the calm before the storm, the final chapter of prosperity before the Great Depression. Amid this cultural explosion, the U.S. Mint continued its steady work, producing coins for everyday use. Among them, the Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that had become the face of American cents since 1909. And in 1927, the Mint produced a wheat penny that would, one day, command great attention, especially in top condition or with rare errors. The Liberty wheat penny, designed by Victor David Brenner, remained unchanged for decades, its elegance rooted in simplicity. These coins were made from a warm copper alloy, beautiful when new, but prone to darkening, spotting, and wear over time. There are three main factors that can transform a 1927 penny into a $1,000 collectible: condition, mint mark, and errors. Most 1927 pennies were used in circulation for years, worn down by decades of handling. That's why finding a mint state MS coin, especially in red road color, is incredibly rare. Now, very few examples have reached these high grades, making them highly desirable. The 1927s is the scarcest of the three mint varieties. Poor strike quality and low survival in mint state mean collectors searching for a complete set of early San Francisco minted Lincolns often drive prices even higher for top grade 1927s examples. Even circulated coins can have value if they include one of these rare errors: double die obverse DDO, doubling in inscriptions like Liberty or the date $, clipped BLINCHET. When certified, these errors elevate an otherwise common coin into a collector's dream, labeled with red color designation, indicating the original luster free from cleaning, damage, or corrosion. A raw and graded 1927 penny might sell for just cents, but by only a precious few. It reminds us that history doesn't always wear gold and silver. Sometimes it wears copper, and sometimes the smallest coin carries the greatest story. Whether it's the rare 1927s in blazing red, a mint error with a striking anomaly, or a perfectly preserved Philadelphia issue, this penny is a tribute to Lincoln. To American 1946 marked the dawn of a new American era. The war had ended just a year earlier. The nation was flooded with optimism. Troops were coming home to parades, families, and promises of peace. But rationing was still fresh, and resources were tight. In this environment, the U.S. Mint resumed full coin production, including the iconic Lincoln wheat penny, which had been in circulation since 1909. The 1946 penny was the first in years to return to traditional copper, as the wartime steel cents of 1943 and zinc-plated issues of 1944 and 1945 had come to an end. The result was a coin that represented a return to normalcy and, for collectors, the beginning of something more. The Liberty wheat penny design is simple yet iconic, and it remained unchanged from 1909 to 1958, though none are rare. By mintage alone, value comes from something far more elusive: preservation, strike quality, and errors. This composition returned in 1946 after wartime changes. Unlike the steel pennies of 1943, the 1/9 for 6 cent was once again warm and reddish-brown, a return to normal in both feel and form. Most 1946 wheat pennies are worth 1 to 5 cents in circulated condition, but a small number are worth hundreds, even thousands of US dollars. Only a few dozen examples in the world have been graded this high, and when collectors fight over these top specimens, prices soar. Minting errors can transform a common coin into a numismatic marvel. For 1946, some of the most valuable errors include doubled die obverse DDO. Prices range from $100 to $2,000, depending on severity and condition. If the design is shifted significantly, it can be worth $150 to $500 plus a chunk missing from the rim can boost value to $200, $800, especially seen on 1/9 for 60 or 1946. Pennies 1946 wheat penny graded MS67. Brown may sell for $300. The same coin in MS67. Red could command over $5,000. The color matters, and it matters a lot. 1946 SMS67 Road. Lincoln wheat penny sold for $7,800 in a heritage auction. 1/9 for 60 MS67 Road, with perfect luster and strike, fetched $3,120. A rare 1946 DDO penny in mint state exceeded $1,900. An off-metal 1946 cent struck on a dime planchette brought over $10,000. Each of these coins tells a story of preservation, error, or sheer luck. Believe it or not, valuable 1/9 for 6 pennies still surface today in old family collections, estate sale coin jars, original mint rolls, attics and cigar boxes, inherited albums tucked away for decades. Most are worn, but even AVF or XF, example with an error or unique trait, can be worth real money, though it's not one of the key dates in the series. The 1946 Liberty wheat penny represents more than face value. It marks the return to post-war normalcy, continuation of the beloved wheat cent tradition, a turning point between wartime scarcity and booming production. This penny carries the legacy of the United States economic recovery and the dawn of a new era. To understand its importance, we must first look back to the wheat penny series, which began in 1909 under the direction of President Theodore Roosevelt. He commissioned sculptor Victor David Brenner to redesign the penny. Brenner's design honored Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, and to wheat stalks on the reverse, representing prosperity. By 1950, the wheat penny had been circulating for over 40 years. The United States was undergoing immense transformation. The post-war baby boom was in full swing, and the economy was thriving. Millions of pennies were produced to meet the needs of a growing population. There were 3 mints producing the 1950 wheat penny. Although these numbers seem high, it's the quality and condition of the coin, and the presence of any error that greatly influence its collector value today. The design of the 1950 penny is timeless. On the obverse, we see a bust of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. The words "In God We Trust" arc above his head. Liberty is positioned on the left, and the date 1950 lies on the right. If minted in Denver or San Francisco, a small D or S will appear just below the date. The reverse features the iconic wheat ears framing the words, 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum at the top. Now let's talk about errors and varieties, which can greatly increase a coin's worth. One of the most sought-after error types is the double die obverse. Although rare for 1950, some coins exhibit noticeable doubling in the inscriptions, especially around Liberty and the date. These are extremely valuable. Pristine 1950 wheat penny in mint state, MS65 or higher, especially with a red road designation, can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the mint and any errors. For example, a 1950s penny graded MS67 road sold for over $7,000 at auction. The historical backdrop also adds to its charm. In 1950, the Korean War had just begun. The Cold War tensions were rising. Americans were investing in infrastructure, education, and industry. It was a year of contrast of both hope and fear. The penny in your pocket reflected not just economic exchange, but cultural transition. Collectors today often seek out the 1950 Liberty wheat penny not only for its potential value but for its nostalgic connection to mid-century America. It represents a time when pennies could still buy a piece of candy or a gumball. It was the currency of soda fountains, drive-ins, and jukeboxes. Over the decades, many of this penny reflects a time when American confidence and patriotism were high. The 1948 wheat penny features the iconic Abraham Lincoln profile on the obverse, a design created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. This marked the centennial of Lincoln's birth and was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. The 1948 Lincoln wheat penny was produced at 3 different mints. This was standard composition for Lincoln, -1 prior to the 1982 switch to a copper-plated zinc format. Several error coins and varieties from 1948 can be worth significantly more than face value. Some 1948 pennies exhibit doubling on the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust. Pennies struck off-center, especially if the date is still visible, are highly collectible. These feature a die break between the B and E in Liberty, forming what appears to be the letter A. These errors occurred due to worn or misaligned dies and are sought after by collectors. The value of a 1948 wheat penny depends largely on mint mark, condition, and whether it contains errors. Grade 1948, P 1948. The 1948 penny is often included in Lincoln wheat cent collections. While not the rarest of the series and those with unique mint errors, this coin marks the end of the first half of the 20th century for Lincoln cents. It sits in the middle of a timeline stretching from the early 1900s to the eventual change in reverse design in 1959, when the Lincoln Memorial replaced the wheat ears. Victor D. Brenner's design of the Lincoln cent revolutionized coinage in the U.S., giving rise to modern commemorative coins. The wheat penny era 1909 to 1958 holds a special place in American hearts for its simplicity and symbolism. The 1948 Liberty wheat penny may not make headlines like a 1909's VDB or a 1943 copper cent, but it stands proudly as a symbol of American resilience and post-war optimism. Whether tucked into a coin folder by a new collector or preserved in mint state by a professional, this coin reminds us of a time when even a single cent carried weight, value, and history. This script avoids any use of the word host and contains no visual directions, making it ideal for narration-style videos. It weighs just over 3 grams. It's copper-toned, often worn smooth by time, and yet, the 1949 Liberty wheat penny may be hiding a value that far exceeds its humble denomination. Born in the shadow of World War II and minted during the dawn of post-war recovery, the 1949 wheat penny is more than a coin. It's a piece of American resilience. Some versions of this simple cent have sold for thousands of US dollars not because of what they bought in 1949, but because of what they represent today. Let's uncover the story of this often overlooked penny and why collectors are still searching tirelessly for its rarest and most valuable versions. The year 1949 marked a critical transition. America was settling into post-war peace. The Marshall Plan was rebuilding Europe. The Cold War had begun to cast its long shadow, and at home, prosperity was slowly returning. It was in this context that the Lincoln wheat penny for 1949 was struck, made of copper alloy. Its design hadn't changed in for decades, but its story was evolving. Millions were minted, but only a tiny fraction would survive in pristine condition or with the types of errors and qualities collectors now pay thousands for. The 1949 wheat penny continues the classic Lincoln design introduced in 1909. A verse front portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, flanked by the words "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1949. To curved wheat stalks surrounding the inscriptions. 1 cent. The San Francisco issue had the lowest mintage and is often the most sought after, especially in high grades or with rare die varieties. For most, a 1949 penny is just nostalgic pocket change, but for collectors, value varies drastically depending on grade, mint mark, and error. Some 1949 wheat pennies left the mint with striking mistakes that today are worth a fortune. Look closely at the words Liberty or the date. If there's noticeable doubling, you might be holding a coin worth $500 to $2,000 or more, common in both D and S varieties. When the mint mark was stamped more than once at slightly different angles, it creates a doubling effect. RPMs are highly collectible and can fetch $100 to $800 plus depending on sharpness. While not as dramatic, they still increase value, particularly on high-grade coins. Color and luster, red coins, that retain their original mint brilliance are far more valuable than brown or dull coins. Strike quality, a well-struck coin with sharp details can command a premium. Condition and grade, the higher the grade MS65 plus, the rarer and more valuable it becomes. Combine any of these with a rare world of numismatics. There are coins that quietly gain value over time, and then there are coins that become legends. To most people, it's just a cent, brown, worn, easily forgotten. But to coin collectors, the 1955 wheat penny holds the status of a treasured artifact, with rare versions worth thousands, even tens of thousands of US dollars. And it all began with a simple, spectacular mistake at the US Mint. The year was 1955. America was in the middle of post-war prosperity. Elvis Presley was on the radio. Gas cost 23 cents per gallon, and pennies still mattered. That year, at the Philadelphia Mint, a mishap during production created one of the most recognizable and iconic mint errors in U.S. history. A small number of pennies were struck with a dramatically doubled image in error, so bold it could be seen with the naked eye. This was not just another coin. This was the 1955 double die obverse penny. Like other wheat pennies from the era, the 1955 cent features the classic Lincoln design introduced in 1909. Obverse front, a right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, 1955. It's not subtle. It's not faint. It's not something you need a microscope to see. The 1955 double die obverse is one of the boldest minting errors ever released into circulation. On error coins, each character appears clearly doubled, with sharp outlines visible to the naked eye. This wasn't a die crack or a strike-through. It was a complete misalignment during the die creation process, and it created a numismatic sensation. Fewer than 24 examples are believed to have been released, mostly during late-night production before the error was discovered. By then, the coins were already mixed into bags and sent to banks. The U.S. Mint decided not to recall them, and history was made. Today, the 1955 double die wheat penny is one of the most valuable and sought-after error coins in U.S. history. Even heavily circulated examples with visible doubling regularly fetch over $1,000. While the double die obverse steals the spotlight, there are other 1955 wheat pennies that collectors value highly. Coins with raised lumps from worn dies, especially near Lincoln's eye or the lettering, can be collectible. These create a shifted design, sometimes with part of the rim missing. Although 1955 Philadelphia coins have no mint mark, rare repunched marks have been observed in experimental or off-site test pieces. These lesser-known errors can still command hundreds of dollars, depending on condition. The 1955 double die wheat penny has been featured in books, documentaries, magazines, and even TV shows. Its fame extends far beyond coin shops. The 1939 Lincoln wheat cent is a fascinating piece of American numismatic history, though its face value is just 1 cent. This small copper coin carries a rich legacy of economic, political, and cultural. The Lincoln wheat penny series was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It replaced the Indian head cent and marked the first time a real person, President Lincoln, appeared on U.S. currency. The coin was designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB originally appeared prominently on the reverse but were later removed due to public backlash. In 1939, the world was on the brink of massive upheaval. World War II had just begun in Europe, although the United States remained officially neutral until 1941. The economic and political climate was tense. Domestically, America was still recovering from the Great Depression, and the government had initiated programs under Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal to stabilize the economy. Coins like the 1939 wheat penny circulated heavily during this time, serving both as currency and as symbols of American resilience. The Philadelphia version was produced in very large quantities, making it common. However, the Denver and San Francisco versions are more sought after due to lower mintage numbers, especially in higher grades, weighs 3.11 grams, and measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter. These specifications were standard for all Lincoln wheat pennies until 1943, when the U.S. Mint switched to steel due to wartime copper shortages. While many 1939 wheat pennies are still in circulation or found in old collections, coin collectors value examples in mint state MS condition, especially those with rare errors or variations such as double die outbursts. DD or off-center strikes are even more prized. Value of the 1939 Liberty wheat penny. Collectors hunt for these varieties in the 1939 series. The Lincoln penny, including the 1939 edition, symbolizes honesty, leadership, and perseverance. It's a tribute to Abraham Lincoln's legacy and to the working-class Americans who used these coins daily during challenging times. The 1939 Liberty wheat penny might appear modest in appearance, but its story is rich with history. Minted during a pivotal year in world history, it represents an era of economic struggle, political transition, and national determination. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist or a beginner collector, the 1939 penny is a valuable artifact and a reminder of how even the smallest coins can carry great historical weight. The 1935 edition was struck during a time of slow recovery from the Great Depression, adding layers of economic and emotional significance to its legacy. Each era type adds rarity and uniqueness, and collectors aggressively hunt for them, especially in uncirculated condition. In 1935, the United States was still climbing out of the Great Depression. People weren't saving coins for collections, they were spending every cent to survive. The few mint state 1935 pennies that exist today likely came from sealed bank rolls or mint bags, untouched for decades. Most of those are already in collector hands or graded slabs, making fresh discoveries increasingly rare. That's why a 1935 penny in MS-67 road condition with full red luster and no wear is not just rare, it's extraordinary. Here are just a few highlights from major coin sales. A 1935 MS-67 road Lincoln, cents sold for $4,200 at Heritage Auctions. A 1935 MS-67 road went for $3,800 due to near-perfect surfaces and blazing red color. 1935p with a double die outburst fetched over $2,500 in an Aerocoin auction. The numbers tell the story. These coins are no longer just 1-cent pieces, they're historical assets. Rare 1935 wheat pennies can still be found if you know where to search. Old coin albums or jars, especially family collections, estate sales, and antique shops, often overlooked by non-collectors. Coin roll hunts, unsearched wheat penny rolls from dealers or auctions, bank vault collectors.